blood tasted like pennies. Riley Mercer learned that when she was 16, with her back against a busted chain-link fence behind a Cleveland group home. Her lips split open, her knuckles raw, and 3 older boys staring at her like they had finally realized the skinny girl they cornered was not the easy target they wanted. 10 years later, at 3 in the morning, she tasted it again. Only this time, it was not her blood. It belonged to the most untouchable man on Chicago's South Side. He came into the diner laughing at her. He dared her to prove she was tough. That was his first mistake. His second was putting his hands anywhere near her. Grace's diner sat between a shuttered payday loan place and a liquor store, with bars over the windows. The kind of 24-hour joint where the coffee was strong, the pie was usually stale, and nobody asked questions unless they wanted trouble. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead like dying insects. The floor smelled of bleach, old grease, rainwater, and defeat. Riley had been on her feet for 9 hours. Her back hurt. Her left knee ached from an old injury she never had money to fix properly. Her faded blue uniform dress was damp at the collar, and her apron had 3 coffee stains shaped like bad decisions. She dragged a rag across table 4, smearing ketchup and crumbs into a pinkish streak. When the bell over the door gave one sharp, ugly jingle, the air changed. That was the only way to describe it. Jimmy, the line cook, stopped scraping the grill. An old man in the corner froze with his decaf halfway to his mouth. Carla, the 19-year-old waitress on the late shift, whispered, "Oh my God." Riley looked toward the door. 3 men had walked in out of the November rain. 2 of them were built like refrigerator doors wrapped in leather jackets. Their eyes moved first, their bodies second. Shoulder holsters bulged beneath their coats. But the man between them stole every inch of the room. Dominic Russo. Everyone on the South Side knew his name, though smart people did not say it too loudly. He was not some loud street thug with gold chains and a temper. He wore a charcoal overcoat over a custom black suit. His dark hair brushed back, his jaws sharp enough to cut glass. His face was handsome in the way winter was beautiful, cold, clean, and capable of killing you. His eyes passed over the diner with bored disgust. Then he walked to the back booth like he owned the building, the block, and everyone breathing inside it. "Maybe Hidea?" "Riley," Carla whispered. Riley turned. Carla was standing by the coffee station, menus trembling in her hands. Her face had gone pale. "I can't take that table." "Carla." "No!" Her voice cracked. "My cousin owed money to one of his guys. They broke his jaw in 3 places. I can't. Please." Riley looked at the booth. Dominic was already seated, one arm stretched along the cracked red vinyl, his men flanking him. He had not opened a menu. Men like him never did. They expected the world to arrange itself around their appetite. Every instinct Riley had learned in foster homes, alleys, and bad apartments told her to walk out the back door and keep going. But rent was due Tuesday. Her eviction notice was already folded inside the top drawer of her nightstand. She held out her hand. "Give me your pad." Carla blinked. "What?" "Your order pad." Carla handed it over with shaking fingers. Riley did not fix her hair. She did not smooth her apron. She did not put on a smile. Smiles were useless around predators. They only showed your throat. She crossed the diner slowly, her sneakers squeaking on the linoleum. The closer she got, the more the smell of bleach and fryer oil disappeared beneath expensive cologne. Wet wool and cold rain. She stopped at the edge of the booth. "What can I get you?" One of the bodyguards, the one with a scar through his left eyebrow, turned his head. "Try that again." Riley looked at him. "Coffee's fresh." Menus on the wall. His jaw flexed. "You say sir when you talk to him." Riley shifted her weight off her bad knee. "Calling him sir won't bring back the cherry pie." "We're out." The bodyguard started to rise. Dominic lifted 2 fingers. That was all. The man froze, then sat back down. Dominic looked up at Riley for the first time. His eyes traveled over her chipped nails, her tired face, the cheap name tag pinned crooked above her heart. His expression said he had already priced her, dismissed her, and found her worth less than the coffee mug in front of him. black coffee," he said. His voice was low and rough, with the lazy confidence of a man who had never once wondered if anyone would obey. 3 cups. Fresh part. Fen. She turned before he could say anything else. Behind the counter, Jimmy mouthed, "Asterisk, are you insane?" Asterisk. Riley ignored him. Her hand stayed steady as she poured 3 mugs and grabbed the orange-handled coffee pot. That was something, at least. Her heart was beating hard enough to shake her ribs, but her hands had learned long ago how to lie. When she returned, the men were speaking quietly in Italian. They stopped the second her shoes squeaked beside the booth. Riley set down 1 mug, then the second, then reached across to place the third in front of the scarred bodyguard. His hand shot out, his fingers clamped around her wrist. Pain flashed up her arm. The coffee pot tilted slightly in her other hand, hot liquid sloshing near the rim. "I don't like your attitude," the bodyguard said. His thumb pressed into the tendon at her wrist, hard and deliberate. Riley went still. Not weak still, not scared still, the kind of still that comes right before glass breaks. "Let go," she said. The bodyguard laughed and glanced at Dominic, like a dog waiting for praise. "She thinks she gives orders now." Dominic leaned back, amused. He took a slow sip of coffee, his dark eyes never leaving Riley's face. He was waiting for tears, waiting for a stammered apology, waiting for her to remember what she was and what he was. "You're a bold little waitress," Dominic said. "Think you're tough, talking like that to my people in a dump like this?" Part 2. The drop. Riley's eyes shifted from Dominic to the hand locked like a vice around her wrist. "I'm not tough," Riley said, her voice dropping into a dead, flat calm. "I'm just tired, and you're in my way." Dominic's smirk deepened into something cruel. "Show me, prove how tough you are." Break his grip. He gestured lazily to his man. "If you can, we leave. If you can't, you get on your knees and apologize to him for the disrespect." The bodyguard grinned, his grip tightening until the bones in Riley's wrist ground together. Big mistake. Riley didn't pull away. Pulling away was what prey did. Instead, she stepped into him. With her free hand, she slammed the heavy, thick-glassed coffee pot down onto the table with a deafening crack. In the exact same fraction of a second, she twisted her trapped arm outward, seizing the bodyguard's thick thumb. She snapped it back with brutal, practiced precision. The man howled, his grip instantly shattering. Before he could recoil, Riley drove the heel of her palm upward, catching him squarely under the chin. His head snapped back, his eyes rolled up, and he collapsed sideways out of the booth, hitting the floor like a sack of wet cement. Silence crashed down over the diner. The second bodyguard ripped his coat open, his hand flying to the holster at his chest. "No!" Dominic's voice cracked like a whip. The second man froze, his gun halfway drawn. Dominic wasn't smiling anymore. The lazy amusement was gone, replaced by a dark, dangerous storm. He slid out of the booth, unfolding his tall frame until he towered over her. He smelled of raw power and violence, a predator realizing the mouse had teeth. "You think you're brave because you caught a slow man off guard?" Dominic stepped into her personal space. His chest nearly brushed her shoulder. "You just signed your own death warrant, little girl." He reached out, his large, calloused hand gripping the collar of her faded blue uniform, preparing to hurl her over the counter. His second mistake. Riley didn't flinch. As his hand closed on her collar, she moved with explosive speed. She clamped both of her hands over his wrist, locking his arm tightly to her chest. She pivoted sharply on her good leg, dropping her hips low to get completely underneath his center of gravity. Dominic Russo was a massive man, but physics didn't care about street cred, and the linoleum was slick with rainwater. Using his own aggressive forward momentum against him, Riley bowed her back and pulled. She threw him over her hip in a textbook judo toss. Dominic went airborne. For a split second, the most untouchable man on Chicago's South Side was utterly weightless. Then, he hit the ground. Thud! The impact shook the napkin dispensers. Dominic slammed flat onto his back on the dirty, bleach-smelling tiles. The breath left his lungs in a violent rush. His head bounced once against the linoleum, splitting his lower lip. Jimmy the cook dropped his spatula. Carla let out a high, thin squeak. Riley stood over Dominic, her chest heaving, her apron slightly askew. She looked down at the mafia boss, watching a single drop of bright red blood well up on his lip. Blood tasted like pennies. She knew he was tasting it right now. The remaining bodyguard finally drew his weapon, leveling the heavy black muzzle right at Riley's chest. "I too kill you," he roared. "Put an A," Dominic wheezed, rolling onto his side. He held up a shaking hand, coughing violently as he forced himself up onto one knee. He touched his lip, looked at the blood on his fingers. The entire diner held its breath, waiting for the execution order. Instead, Dominic Russo started to laugh. It started as a low rumble and turned into a genuine, breathless chuckle. He slowly pushed himself to his feet, adjusting his custom suit, ignoring the grime that now clung to his expensive charcoal overcoat. He looked at Riley, really, looked at her, and the cold disgust from earlier was entirely gone. In its place was a sharp, burning respect. "What's your name?" he asked, his voice rough. "Riley," she said, not backing up an inch. Dominic reached into his coat pocket. The bodyguard tensed, but Dominic only pulled out a thick silver money clip. He peeled off 5 crisp $100 bills and dropped them onto table 4, right next to the coffee pot. "For the coffee, Riley," Dominic said softly. He nudged the unconscious bodyguard on the floor with the toe of his leather shoe. "Wake him up," Dominic ordered his other man. "We're leaving," the conscious guard hastily holstered his weapon and hauled his groaning partner to his feet. Together, they stumbled toward the exit. Dominic stopped at the door. He glanced back over his shoulder, his dark eyes locking onto Riley one last time. "Have a good night," the mafia boss said. The bell gave one sharp, ugly jingle and they were gone, swallowed back up by the cold November rain. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. The smell of bleach and old grease returned. Riley took a deep breath, picked up her rag, and wiped down table 4. She pocketed the $500 rent was covered, and she could finally afford to look at her bad knee. Then she looked over at Carla, whose mouth was still hanging wide open by the coffee station. "Grab the mop, Carla," Riley said, turning back toward the kitchen. "Table 4 needs a wipe down."